The Keystone XL pipeline proposal promises to create thousands of jobs for skilled craft workers. This shovel-ready project has its opponents, including environmental groups that oppose Keystone XL, using myths and falsehoods to create opposition. In the next 4 minutes, we will hit these myths head-on. Myth number 1. Oil sands crude is more corrosive in a pipeline than other crude oils.
Crude oil from oil sands is not more corrosive than crude oil imported from places like Nigeria and the Middle East. In fact, oil sands crude has been shipped by pipeline to refineries in the Midwest since the 1980s. U.S. DOT data show there haven't been any releases related to internal corrosion from pipelines carrying Canadian crude of any type since 2002.
Myth number 2. Aquifers are threatened by leaking crude oil.
While pipeline leaks are a very serious matter, crude oil travels through soil at a very slow rate, estimated in many cases at about a foot an hour. Aquifers are often hundreds, if not thousands of feet deep. Keystone will employ the latest technology. If a leak occurs, cleanup will be resolved well before an aquifer is threatened. Jim Gakey, a leading research hydrologist and professor emeritus at the University of Nebraska, openly supports the Keystone XL pipeline project in testimony and editorial commentary.
Myth number 3. Oil sands crude will be exported to foreign markets if Keystone XL is built.
Canada will find a market for oil sands, here or abroad. However, because more domestic crude is needed to replace shrinking imports we receive from elsewhere, the U.S. will import oil sands crude to provide a stable, secure source for future economic growth. While the vast majority of refined products will be sold in the U.S., petroleum products are traded globally, and some products produced in the Gulf will continue to find export markets. But the U.S. would meet all liquid fuel needs through North American resources in 15 years with greater access to domestic and Canadian sources of oil. This would be a welcome relief for a nation that has had to rely in part on unstable and unfriendly regimes for crude oil supplies, especially now when nations like Iran threaten to close the vital Straits of Hormuz.
Myth number 4. Massive excavation in Alberta is destroying habitat.
The oil sands comprises an area about the size of Illinois. The area that is mined is approximately the size of Chicago. Also, 80% of the resource crude isn't even mineable, but rather will be produced more like conventional drilling using heat and other assists which greatly reduce footprint. Even so, the mined area is being strictly managed by the Albertan government to restore habitat, which imposes a tax on industry for funding of this restoration.
Myth number 5. Gasoline prices will increase when Keystone XL is built.
Pipe fitters are not in the business of predicting gasoline prices, but it is a safe bet that Canadian crude will not be subject to hurricanes or need the protection of the U.S. military. Keystone XL and other Canadian pipelines to U.S. refineries will improve our national energy security.
Myth number 6. The carbon footprint of Canadian oil sands is much greater than other crude.
When measured from the oil well to your gas tank, greenhouse gas emissions from oil sands are comparable to crudes already refined in the U.S.
And finally, myth number 7. Not that many jobs will be created by Keystone XL or the oil sands.
According to TransCanada, 20,000 jobs will be created during the construction of the pipeline.
That's 13,000 jobs for pipe fitters, laborers, and operators working directly on the pipeline, not counting the 7,000 additional jobs providing support to the pipeline.
And after all, for America and its workers, Keystone XL is about jobs.